Hi, welcome. Pull up a chair, get comfortable, grab your favorite drink. I'm having some water today. And welcome to From My Heart to Yours Conversations. Today, we're going to have a conversation with my wonderful guest, the other MaryBeth Cichocki.
There you go. You got it.
So thank you so much for joining me. I've been wanting to meet you for quite a while. So I'm glad we have this opportunity to have a conversation.
Yeah, I'm very grateful too. And I really thank you for inviting me to do this. I really appreciate that.
So you're an angel mom.
I am.
So why don't you share with us about your angel Matt and share a memory or something about his personality, something that brings you joy when you think about your son.
Well, this is the picture of Matt. You can see his beautiful smile. That's the thing that I remember the most about him. He had the best smile and it would just light up a room. He had a beautiful spirit and he was so giving and loving to other people and dogs. I mean, we always had a stray dog that made our house their home. Whenever Matt was out and about, if he saw any animal being abused, it ended up at our house. He was just such a great, loving person. He was like my best friend. I know we were mother and son, but we were more than that. We had a very special relationship, a very special bond. We shared so many things, our love of the beach and our love of animals. He worked rescue with me. It was just such a great relationship. I just miss him terribly.
And you have other children beside Matt.
Yeah, I have an older son, Mike.
Okay.
But you know, it's so funny. They're completely opposite. Mike was very regimented, where Matt was my kid, where I had the washcloth in his face in the morning to get up, get up, get up. Michael went into the Coast Guard Academy right after high school. And Mike was gone. You know, his career took off, and so it just left me and Matt. Matt was 2 years behind Mike in school. And you know, we had a lot of time, just the two of us, you know, to bond. I was single and he was single, and we just really formed this great relationship and did a lot of really cool stuff together.
That's beautiful that you had such a close connection with your child and the opportunities that presented itself to spend one-on-one time with them.
Yeah, we really did. I mean, we had a beach house and we both loved the beach. So on my days off during the week, I was a nurse. So I'd work 12-hour shifts and, you know, I'd give me like 2 or 3 days off during the week. I'd go down and, you know, we would just have such a blast walking on the beach, getting crabs, sitting in his hot tub, just, you know, just times that were so precious and priceless. And I never realized just how priceless they were at the time. You always think you're going to have more time, and we just never know.
That's so true. It's right. I mean, we really should appreciate the time that we have with one another. Yep. Because you never know what's going to happen. We learn that the hard way in our life.
We do. And you know, you're always thinking, because it's the natural order of things, that your kids are going to be saying goodbye to you. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever imagine what we would go through with his addiction and trying to get treatment and, you know, the recovery. I mean, it was just a horrific story that had a horrible end.
So do you mind sharing with us a bit about Matt's substance use?
No, not at all. I'm not ashamed of it at all. I truly believe that it's a disease. Sadly, I didn't know as much back then as I know now. Matt was a mechanic, a car mechanic, and he opened a business down at the beach in Lewis, Delaware. And he was working and just loving life. And like I said, we'd get together on the weekends. It was always great. And one day I remember he called me and said, you know, Mom, I really hurt myself. I lifted an engine out of a car and I felt my back pop.
Oh,
And I
wow.
said, oh no. And he goes, I can barely walk. So I said, being a guy, you don't want to go to the doctor, you don't want to do anything. So I said, Matt, you really do need to go into the ER down there. You need to be checked out, at least need an x-ray. So he goes down to the emergency room. They don't do an x-ray. They don't do anything, but they give him a script for Percocet. And he called me, and I was kind of like, oh, they don't know what they're treating. I know you're in pain. I know you want to be out of pain, but how about if, we get somebody to do an x-ray? Well, he said, Mom, they told me to take them every 4 to 6 hours, so I'm going to do that. And sadly, he did. He was given Percocet, 30 milligrams, which is a pretty high dose. Matt was a pretty big guy, but I still thought, can't you start him out at 5 or 10 and see where that goes, or add some Motrin or Tylenol with it, or something, physical therapy, heat, anything.
Right.
But, back in those days, now I'm talking probably, 10, 12, 15 years ago, they didn't do anything other than hand you the script and say, here, go take these pills and good luck. Never once did anyone tell him how addictive those pills were. And honestly, I'm a little ashamed of myself because, I, even being a nurse, I never had dealings with opioids. I took care of critical care babies, and very rarely did we ever use an opioid in the NICU. And I just wanted him to be pain free. So sadly, this went on probably for a good year. And I remember going down to the beach. Matt was always very, very clean. He had 2 dogs, labs, who shed terribly, and you would never know it. I remember coming down to surprise him. I had a key, and I remember he was on the couch, and he was just like nodding out. There was dog hair all over the kitchen floor, mail unopened. It was just like, oh my God. So, being in the mom mode, I put my little, mom mode, get the vacuum out and do all the cleaning and do all the dishes, and, sit down and talk to him. And I tried to say, hey, you know what, Matt, I think there's a problem here. I think you're maybe addicted. And he was like, oh, I know, but the doctors keep telling me to take it. And I thought, you know what, Matt, how about if we try to back off a little bit? So he did, and then the withdrawal started.
Oh,
And
wow.
I never realized the severity of withdrawal until I saw it with my own eyes. I mean, it was horrible. He was tortured. I mean, it was like his skin was being ripped off his body. He was hot, he was cold, he was vomiting, diarrhea. I mean, it was so severe, and it was only because he was on such a high dose for so long. And then, the pain did not get any better. So I brought him up here, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to have you see. I had a friend who was a neurosurgeon, a very reputable neurosurgeon. I brought him up, Newcastle County, when he was down in Sussex County at the beach, and had my doctor friend take a look at him. And he said, oh my God, he needs surgery. This is why he's in so much pain. And when I showed him how much Percocet he was getting, I mean, the look on his face he was just astounded. So Matthew ended up having surgery, and he stayed up here with me for 3 weeks post-op, trying to get him back on his feet. But my reputable neurosurgeon would not give him that high dose of Percocet. He would only give him 5 to 10 and said, you need to try other means. We'll give you a back brace, we'll give you a TENS unit, we'll try other pain relief measures. Well, Matt stayed with me for 3 weeks, and being under my guard, it was okay to watch him and to make sure he didn't do, the other drugs. But like I said, I never realized that not only was he having the physical surgical pain, but he was having that mental,
Right.
withdrawal pain that I could not see. And so he went back down to the beach, and unfortunately, he went to a pain management clinic, which to me, they're nothing but drug dealers hiding behind white coats, and got back on the 30s. And it was just a spiral downward from that.
About how many years did he suffer?
He went through probably about 9 years of,
Wow.
in treatment. But, back then, and it's still the case today, actually, I still try to get people help. And it seems like the insurance industry continues to not recognize parity.
Right.
And they will not treat addiction like they treat other chronic treatable diseases. I truly believe they have made it a terminal disease. Matt would be in a rehab for 5 days in a treatment center, and he'd be, well, Mom, they're telling me I have to leave. The insurance won't pay. I'm like, wait a minute, you don't even have all this crap out of your system yet. What is going on? So it was like, I called it the revolving door of treatment, and that's exactly what it turned out to be. And it went on for years, and I got to the point where I started to be a really mouthy bitch. And, I would go after the insurance companies. I called my attorney general in Delaware. I called our congressman. And when it got to the really, bad part where Matt was just totally out of control, I got him into a place in Pennsylvania called Bowling Green on a scholarship because of the congressman that I had contacted. But even then, he was only in there for 3 weeks, which, back in that day, it was that was a pretty decent amount of time, but it still wasn't enough. We didn't have all the research that says your brain is so damaged. You need at least 3 to 9 months in treatment for your brain to even begin to heal. We didn't know all this back then.
And it's such a shame. And like you said, I know with Ryan, he was told it would take a year, 9 months to a year for his brain to kind of reset.
Mm-hmm.
And in rehabs, they're not given that time.
No, they're not. If I had my cancer treated the way Matt had his addiction treated, I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today.
Yeah.
It's brutally sad to me as a medical person how the stigma is still alive and well, even with all the research that we know. They have MRIs of people's brains that show the damage, and the HIPAA, I hate that HIPAA law, because I always felt like, if my child was in a motor vehicle accident and had a a brain injury, they would not be making their medical decisions for themselves. But they don't treat addiction like that. So, Matt was able to, I feel better now, Mom. I don't need to be here. So he could sign himself out. And, I think that is so wrong. And I'm working to try to change that here in my state of Delaware, because I think, they do need to be treated like they are brain damaged, because they are.
They are.
They absolutely
are.
Mm-hmm.
So what is Matt's forever age? How old?
37.
37.
37. And actually, it'll be 8 years on January the 3rd.
Wow. 8 years.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I can't imagine what you've gone through in that length of time. But in that length of time for your grief journey, how have you changed during that time?
Wow. I've become outspoken. I figure, you know what? I'm not pulling any punches with anybody, especially my state legislators, the attorney general, the governor, and the assistant governor. We've all really kind of become friends, believe it or not. I actually have their cell phone numbers. And I've just really not pulled any punches with anybody, because it's easy to pass a bill. It's a piece of paper and the governor signs it. But if you don't work that bill, if you don't follow what that bill says, to me, it's a useless piece of paper. So, I am still in contact with different recovery places, recovery homes, treatment centers. And if anything is going on, I'm going to call them out. because it's not right. And this is people's lives. It's okay to sit behind a desk and, say, no, we don't have any beds. But how are you going to feel when that's your child and you're asking for help and somebody continues to say no to you? So I just, I tell people, you know what, you can't hurt me any more than I've been hurt. We have lived the worst thing that could ever happen to a parent. So,
Agreed. And
yeah,
I say the same thing too, is you can't hurt me. And I say
right,
exactly the same thing.
right.
You can't hurt me. And even in grief, when people say, oh, I'm afraid to bring this up and hurt your feelings, you can't hurt me.
That's
We-
impossible. I don't know how
We've been
anybody, yeah,
shattered. And part of our grief journey is a different kind of recovery. It's like a grief recovery.
mhm,
And with
yeah,
your being outspoken and loud, thank you for that. I thank you for that. You have a voice where so many don't know how to vocalize like their thoughts or what to
mhm.
do. And with you being vocal, it helps people think. And that's what we need, is people to think and get on board.
Yeah, I mean, we really do. I mean, we need to come together as grieving parents, and not allow this to go on. We need to take on those insurance companies, and we need to demand that they honor parity. It's a law. It's a federal law. How can you continue to ignore it?
Yeah.
I don't get this. It just makes me crazy when I'm dealing with a situation right now, trying to get a young lady into treatment, and it's the same crap. And I will call my attorney general friend and say, listen, this is BS and you need to step in because this is crazy. And I'm not going to let this young girl end up dead on the street because the insurance industry is, not honoring what they need to honor. Or, the treatment center says, oh no, come back tomorrow. Well,
Right.
tomorrow might be a little late.
Right.
That's the thing that frustrates me more than anything is, some things have changed. I must say, I must give people credit because some things have changed, but a lot of things haven't changed. And, I still think the medical community needs a lot of education still, especially in the ER. First responders, some of them have a very big bias against using Narcan to bring somebody back. Well, I will talk right up to a firefighter or a police officer and say, hey, if I was having a heart attack or if I was having an allergic reaction, would you use your EpiPen? Would you use a defibrillator? So what the hell's your problem with Narcan?
Right. Right. I hear what you're saying. And it's so sad. It's so sad that the stigma is so bad for
Yep.
people that suffer from substance abuse. And it's like they're unworthy. But like you said, so
Mhm.
somebody having a heart attack is worthy of you saving, but yet somebody else
Right.
having a crisis, an overdose, they're worthy also.
Exactly. And,
They're
and
not
I'll say to,
worthy. They are
exa-
humans. We're
right.
human first.
And I'll say to people, okay, so a smoker gets lung cancer.
Mhm.
It's written right on this pack of cigarettes, can cause cancer, but you're not going to not treat that person because they knew, that they could get cancer from smoking. No, you're going to be humane. The insurance company is going to pay for treatment. They're going to be hospitalized. They're not going to be kicked out when they're revived with Narcan. I mean, that's my biggest pet peeve. You go to the ER, you're revived. Well, my God, you were dead on the street. If it wasn't for Narcan, you wouldn't be here. But yet they're going to release you in 4 hours? I mean, seriously? I mean, what is wrong with this system?
And I've asked too. I have spoken with the local sheriff's department in my county recently,
Mhm.
and I was curious. I want to know what's happening in my backyard.
Right.
Like, is there a problem? Of course there is, but I wanted to know their answer. And I wanted to know the demographics, and I wanted to know the treatment. And if they do administer Narcan, well, what
Right.
happens next when they're released from the hospital? Is there follow-up? Like, how are
Mhm.
we want, they're humans. We want these people in our society. You know,
Right.
everybody is somebody's son or daughter somewhere.
Absolutely. And the people that I have worked with that have substance abuse disorder are such beautiful souls.
Mhm.
They really are. I mean, they would do anything for anyone. And they're ashamed enough of themselves and their situations. And, I feel like we need to have some compassion. We need to put ourselves in their place
Mhm.
because, a job loss, an injury, an accident, a surgery that went bad, we could be them. In the flip of the switch, it could be us that is given a script and then we get addicted. And guess what? We've lost our job. We're going to lose our house. We have no way to have food, or anything to sustain us. That's what I always tell people. Don't ever think you're better than they are because they
Agreed.
were exactly who you were. And
Mhm.
now this is where they are. And it's because of society, because of the insurance industry, and because of the medical community. There are people to blame other than the person that's suffering from substance use.
Because it's too easy to blame the person. It's too easy
Hmm.
to finger point. And I know what I've learned since Ryan's passing is I've learned a lot through education, more so now since his
Hmm.
passing than I did before.
Right.
But how I have two sons. One had addictive behavior, the other one doesn't,
Hmm.
and it's just
Yeah.
there's no
Right.
figuring it out like you. One son
Yeah.
did, one son doesn't. But what I want to get to is my favorite part with why I want to talk to you. The similarities we have beside our first name.
I know. Kind of weird.
But I mean, one word, capital B, come on. We're special in our own right. But
Yeah.
about having two sons. So when I got your book, Letters to Matt,
Aw.
and I read it, okay? I read it probably like in 2 days. I read this. I don't think it was the first year in my journey. I don't know because I lost focus,
Right. Right.
retention. But when I was ready, the book was there for me to read. And it was the first thing I read that offered me validation. It gave me validation with how I was feeling and what I went through. And the similarities, Ryan and I would take vacations, just him and we would go to the beach.
Hmm.
So as I'm reading your book, I'm like, that's me. And I'm thinking, you were in my life somewhere. You must have crossed paths. But it was such a validation and so truthful from your heart that you wrote this book. So tell me about what brought you about to write the book. And
Well, I never had any intention to writing a book. I guess, Matt died January the 3rd, and like you, I was in shock. I was in this fog. I couldn't even remember how to turn on my microwave to warm up a cup of water. I was so bad. And one day I just started talking to him and I thought, you know what? I need to remember all of this because I knew as the years went on, my brain, I swear my brain broke and I was never going to be able to recall everything. So it was the month after he died. I sat down at my Mac and I just started writing. Now I write a blog. It's called mothersheartbreak.com. And I started writing just letters and I started talking about, the early days of his addiction, before his addiction, how horrible the treatments was. And, I just went from day to day and just kept documenting everything. And I had a friend come over one day and I'd be writing and I'd be crying because it was so painful to write because I was really ugly and raw when I was writing about the ugliness of his addiction and what it did to both of us. I mean, it turned us into people that we really weren't. The things that were said and done, and the screaming and the fighting, and, the not knowing back then that he could not help himself was horrific. And I just needed to keep it going. So a friend came over and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm just writing. I just have to write." So she goes, "Can I read it?" And I said, "Well, I guess if you want to." So she started reading it and she was like, "Oh my God." She goes, You've got to do something with this." And I said, No, it's just for me." And she said, "No, you really." And I wasn't on Facebook. I wasn't on Twitter. I didn't Instagram. I did nothing. I was like totally illiterate to social media. So she's like, "No, this is really," she said, "just think about it." So I started the blog, and she did help me with that. And I started putting, them out as I would write them. And the feedback that I got was unbelievable. People from all over the country, the UK, Australia, were like, "Oh my God, thank you. You're saying what I can't say, but this is what I live with every day." And it was just, it blew my mind because I felt so alone when Matt died. I felt like nobody could know how horrible this pain is, how life shattering and altering, and I feel like I'm losing my mind. And it just kept flowing out of me, like I was just talking to him. And one day a woman contacted me. She had read my blog, and she was also writing a book of grieving moms. She was getting stories together to write a book. And she said, "Would you please write something about your son and let me share it?" So I did. I wrote my little piece and I gave it to her. And she called me and she said, she goes, "You need to write your own book." And I'm like, "No, I don't have time. My brain's broke. I'm a retard. I can't even spell half the time. If it wasn't for spell check, I don't know. People would be going, what is wrong with this person?" And I said, "I have no idea." I said, "I have no idea. Who do I even contact?" And she said, "Well," she goes, "I hate to tell you," she goes, "but I'm an editor and a publisher." And I was like, "Oh, you're kidding." And she's like, "No." And she goes, "And I need to put this out." She goes, "People need to read these words." So we worked together for about 6 months, and I would send her what I would write. And, it was really funny because she goes, "Usually when somebody's sending me stuff, I need to tweak it and I send it back." And she goes, "Oh my God." She goes, "I'm reading your stuff and I'm sobbing." And she said, "None of this. I can't change any of it." She said, "Because it's just so different than anything I've ever published before." She said, "I feel like you're in the room talking to me, holding my hand and telling me that it's okay to feel the way I do."
And
So,
and I don't want to interrupt, but that's how I felt. Like that's how I felt. That's exactly how I felt.
well, that makes me feel so good because that was really the purpose. Because I had so many people that I thought were my friends um, say to me, "Well, it's been, and when are you going to get over it? When are you going to when are you going to do this? You should be." And I thought, "Excuse me, what child have you buried? Let me know." And then one girl actually came over to my house and told me that I just wanted to be this way. I wanted people to pity me. And I was like, "Are you out of your mind?" And I would sit there and people did make me feel like I was crazy.
They
Like,
make you feel it's making you feel guilty
right.
for grieving. And there should
Absolutely.
be, like, there's guilt and shame with substance use.
Yes.
I had no idea, and I was not prepared for the guilt and shame
Yep.
put upon us left behind.
It's crazy. Everybody's got an opinion, and these
Yeah,
people that have opinions haven't walked our walk. Their
right.
children are alive and well, and they don't have substance use issues. They have no clue what we've been through it's a trauma because not only did we struggle trying to save their lives, but then we had the outcome that we dreaded, that we had nightmares about. And now
And
we're living the nightmare.
I never thought I would lose Ryan,
Mm-mm.
ever. I believed in hope. I always thought
Yeah,
he would get through this. And I think most of us, we do. We think they're going to get through this.
yep,
No matter how bad it is, when there's breath, there's hope.
absolutely. I was
And
the exact same way.
and
I never thought.
in grief, what I learned early on is I own my grief, and I have to be very
Mhm.
open and honest about it, because I
Yep,
had nowhere to turn when I lost Ryan. Like I did. I didn't know any other person. And it's
right.
funny, like you were saying about social media. At that point, I was ready to get off Facebook. I'm like, blah, 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 don't want it. And actually, Facebook saved my life.
Mhm.
And the fact of finding connections with other angel moms. And then with helping like the From Project coming about, it's really in a sad way, but Facebook has transformed my
Mhm.
life for purposeful.
It's the truth. I agree with you. When I finally got on and I just put a little thing out, that I had lost my son to an overdose, and I need help. Is there anybody else out there that has lived this, that would please contact me, because I'm so alone and I am dying, and I just don't know how to do this. How do you lose your heart and continue to live? And I was shocked at so many moms that contacted me and said, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, but I know exactly what you're going through.
Yeah.
I know I'm there with you." And I have made so many wonderful friends like you,
Yeah.
on social media, that, we go to conventions or we go to rallies and we finally can hug each other in person. But there's so many moms out there that I just feel such a connection with, because, I think I have three friends remaining of all the so-called friends that I had in my life. They have said to me, well, after the first year, you should be back to normal. You should be this. Well, I found the second year even worse than the first. And, I don't feel that anybody has the right to tell you how to grieve. And I don't think we should ever be put in a place where we have to defend our grief. But that happens to us all the time.
It does happen to us. And I feel too, our grief journeys are individual,
Hmm.
because I have no idea what it was like to lose Matt, because he was your son. And you have
Right.
no idea what it was like to lose Ryan, but we can connect on so many levels. And the most important one is we are moms. And then,
Exactly.
angel parent, and then the connection, and our tribe of angel families. It's huge. It's more than I
Hmm.
ever imagined. I think it's a like responsibility that we take care of now, the ones that come after us,
Hmm.
because we
Yep.
know that the brain fog,
Oh yeah.
the
Hmm.
physical sicknesses that come with
Oh
it,
yeah. Panic
it's traumatic
attacks.
and
Yeah.
broken. Your whole body just feels broken.
Yeah. I mean, it's like having an out of body
Yeah.
experience. I mean, Matt was in Florida, at a so-called sober home. He
Mhm.
was there for 6 months. He was doing well. He had a job. I had no clue that he was using, just enough to keep him, going. He still functioned. He still went to work every day. I never picked any clues up at all. He loved being in Florida. I had plane tickets February to go down and spend time with him, and, to see where he was living, and to, stock him up at Costco, and, all the stuff that moms do. And I remember being at work. it was a Saturday. I spoke to him 6:23 on Friday night, and he was leaving work and he was driving back to his apartment. And I said, Matt, I said, have a great weekend. I'll call you tomorrow. He goes, well, Mom, I'm going to be on the beach with my friends. And I thought, good for you, Matt. Good for you. You deserve it. And we always ended our calls with, I love you. So it's like, I love you, Matt. I love you, Mom. And I'm so glad, because that was my last words to him. I went to work. I was working a 12-hour shift that Saturday. And my husband showed up at work at lunchtime. And usually I would give Matt a call in the morning just to touch base, but I had a very critical baby and I just could not get to my phone at all. So my husband showed up at work and I could see that he'd been crying, and we had just lost my mother-in-law not too long ago. And I thought, oh no, it's his father. Never in a million years, never did I ever expect those words to come out of his mouth, that he said, no, it's Matt and he's dead. And I remember screaming, but in my mind, it wasn't me screaming. It was another mother in the NICU. And in my mind, I'm saying, oh my goodness, somebody needs to stop that mom from screaming. She's going to scare the babies. She's going to scare the nurses. She's going to scare the parents, never realizing that it was me until all the nurses came and put me in the admission room. And thank God nobody was in there. And I just felt like I just, at that moment in time, if I had been given the choice, I would have died.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to catch him before he got too far from me.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be with Matt. It didn't matter. Nothing mattered. My husband didn't matter. My other son did not matter. Nothing mattered. I was just, I truly felt like I'd left my body.
Yeah. And it's a primal scream.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a primal
Yep.
scream, the pain. But I want to thank you for your courage. Thank you so much for your courage, sharing the story. And we're almost out of time.
Oh gosh.
I wanted you to talk about your backpacks that you do. Hugs for Matt.
Oh, my hug for Matt. Oh yeah. Well, it's funny. It was the first Christmas after Matt died, and I was in the shower, and then I used to really do great at sobbing in the shower, and that was my thing. And I thought, I was talking to God, and I thought, I really miss his hugs more than anything. And a hug for Matt just came to my head. And I remember one day, him and I were driving, and it was in the winter, and there was a homeless man on the street with no coat. And Matt said, Mom, pull over. And I said, why? What's up? He goes, just pull over. So I did. And Matt got out of my car, took off his coat, and he wrapped that man up in his coat. And I'll never forget that. And I said, oh my God, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make these backpacks and I'm going to give them out to the homeless. And this year alone, I've done over probably close to 900 backpacks.
So can people send you donations for them, or
Oh, absolutely. That would be wonderful.
So what I'll do is I'll post in the comments a link on how someone can contact you, because I know a lot of angel families, they want to do something in remembrance of their angel. And that's one way that they can do it, because things we do on a larger scale, my event, what you do, it's very overwhelming. And a lot of people, angel moms I've talked to are like, oh, I can't do something like that. You don't have to.
Right.
You don't have to. You can hop aboard the train and help somebody else in their mission.
You can be a part of it.
Right. Somebody can be part of Hugs for Matt and help you.
That would be wonderful. And you did.
I did.
We had Ryan's hats and Matt's bags with your card and the bracelets. And it was really cool. I thought, oh, this is so cool. It's Matt and Ryan together, going out and doing this and helping people.
Well, I definitely feel a connection to you. And either Matt guided me to you or Ryan did, but I'm so glad. And I'm so glad I read your book.
Oh.
Complete validation. And I lent it out once and never again. I'm not lending out my copy
Oh,
because I
well,
was
it's
so afraid I
available on
wouldn't get it back.
Amazon. Yeah, it's still available on Amazon. So if anybody is interested, but thank you so much, because that's why I wrote it, to validate that, we are broken. And, there is no amount of time. I will never be fixed. I will never be the
No,
person I was
and
before.
we're never going to be who we were before. But how I
No.
try and look at it now with a little positive spin is we're broken. So in those cracks now,
Hmm.
different light could come in. And I feel like
Absolutely.
more love could come into us now to get the support and compassion we need. But our hearts are so full that we can give a lot back now too.
Absolutely. I'm a different person. I am much
Yeah.
more compassionate, much more empathetic than I was, before. And I know that, our grief is so personal. It's like our fingerprint,
Yeah.
and nobody can tell us how to get through it. And I think if I was ever to give any advice to a grieving mom, it would be, be kind to yourself. Don't judge yourself. Don't put time limits on your grief, because there is no time limit. I'm coming up on 8 years, and I can tell you, I can be walking in a grocery store and see a can of beefaroni and just cheer up, because I used to send Matt care packages, and I would send beefaroni, or, smell a scent that reminds me of him, or, anything. I mean, there's triggers, and, it's not as severe as it was before, but, like you, coming up on the anniversary, I can already feel that throat, tightening, and the,
Our bodies tell us,
yeah, they remember.
our bodies tell us, and I know for Ryan's sake, it's the 17th,
Hmm.
and I know there was 1 month this past year, like the week before, I just didn't feel right. I felt I was always on the verge of tears and I couldn't figure
Hmm.
out why.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I looked at the calendar and I realized the 17th was coming. And I think that's the first time it hit me that my body knows, your body
Hmm.
remembers what
It
your
does
mind may
remember.
not. And I love your advice to grieving families, to be kind and to give yourself some grace.
Yes, absolutely. And you're
Just
not
give
going
yourself
crazy.
grace,
Don't let anybody make you think you're going crazy, because you're not. You're grieving.
Yeah. If you're crazy, we all crazy.
Oh, then there's a bunch of us running around out here, huh?
We're all crazy bitches here. We're all around the country.
Maybe they could put us on like a nice island where it's nice and warm, and we can all be crazy together,
Yeah. All right. So we're going to end with a positive thought. I think
Okay.
we've shared many, but come on, one last positive
I
thought.
know. I guess my positive thought is that our kids, they're no longer struggling, and they're at peace. And I know it's hard for us, because now the struggle has transferred to us, where before it was them. But I just know that Matt's in a good place, and that one day I will see him again, and I will get that big hug. So just know that as hard as it is, you are surrounded by love from us who have walked your walk, and we will continue to walk with you. And the days that it rains, we share our umbrellas. We are always a life preserver for another mom. So don't ever be afraid to reach out, because we are here for you.
Yes, agreed. So like I said, I'll post links to everything that we talked about in the comments.
Okay.
You can reach out to MaryBeth or MaryBeth.
The one in Florida or the one in freezing Delaware?
Yeah, the hot one or the cold one.
I know.
You can find the From Project on Facebook. It's a public page, and it's hopefully a soft place for you to land. You can always send me an email to thefromproject@gmail.com. And I'm on YouTube with the From Project. So
Can I
remember,
just say one last thing?
sure.
I also have a support group on Facebook. It's called Support After Addiction Death, and specifically for us.
Very good. So remember, you're not alone. I'm sending you love, hugs, support, and compassion from my heart to yours. I am forever Ryan's mom. There's my cutie.
And there's mine.
Yeah. So until our next conversation, have a great day. Be gentle to yourself and give yourself some grace. Thank you so much, MB. I love you.
Thank you. Love you too. Take care. Stay warm.